Ni hoi minoi, guys. So today I thought I'd do something I've never done before on this channel, which is I picked up a product over the weekend and I've been playing around with it a little, and I thought I'd give it a little bit of a review, kind of a first impression thing. I've used it a decent bit already, but not a whole lot, so I'm not the most in-depth. Might do a more in-depth one later. What I'm going to be reviewing today is the Nvidia Shield. Here I'll get a close-up of the box. For those of you who aren't familiar, it's Nvidia's solution to the Steam Link. I actually have used the Steam Link quite a bit when I lived with Ray. He had Steam Link, and I used it a good bit around there, so I'm a little familiar with it and how it compares to this. I picked this up over the weekend because I wanted a way to stream easy couch players to my living room, because this room's kind of really closed off from the rest of my apartment, and I don't really like to hole up in here so much. I kind of like to hang out, with the cat and Mia as much as I can, so I like to just play video games out there when I'm just casually playing. And so I was looking at this and I decided to get it. Unlike the Steam Link, which caps out at 1080p 60 frames per second, this is capable of streaming in 4K HDR, and there's a couple other features. I'll get into it a little more. But so yeah, 4K, which is pretty crazy. That of course depends on your bandwidth and what all you got running over your pipes. Are you using its wireless adapter, or are you using its Ethernet adapter and having a wired connection? Lots of factors in what you can actually end up getting up to, what machine you're running it on, and what you're playing it in, as well as what TV you're playing on. So there's lots of stuff that factors in there. But in addition to being a game streamer, it is also a set-top box. So it has its own storage. This one has 16 gigs, I believe. 16 gigabyte storage, and it's got a USB expansion. So it's got 2 USB ports, so you could put an external hard drive on there if you wanted to. Well, actually, let's just jump into the specs now. So this has got 3 gigs of RAM, a 64-bit CPU, 256-core Nvidia graphics, an Nvidia Tegra X1 processor. So I mean, it's not great, it's not amazing, but it'll get some stuff done for sure. I found it really interesting that it had a wireless NIC. I don't know, I just didn't expect it to. I don't know why I didn't, but it did, so that was cool. It's and like I said, it can download apps like Netflix, Hulu, YouTube, Amazon Prime. I mean, like all of your cable and streaming apps you can do through here. Another cool thing about it though is it's paired with Android. So if you have an Android phone, you can link this to your Google account, and that'll automatically pull a bunch of your stuff down for you, and a lot of your information, so that's good. If you have an Nvidia graphics card, that is the requirement for streaming games. If you have an Nvidia graphics card, you can first download GeForce Experience, which if you have an Nvidia graphics card and you don't have GeForce Experience, what are you doing? But you open GeForce Experience, have that going, enable streaming, and you can stream to this. Since it's Nvidia to Nvidia, that's kind of the whole idea behind this. And that's what allows you to do the game streaming. You do need that, but if you're going to spend, this was pricey. I got the model that comes with the remote, 16 gig version, and the controller. That was around $200. I'll put the exact price up here. I got it at Best Buy, but I can't remember the exact price. The model that was even more storage, I want to say it might have been 250 gigs. That was around $300, and then the one with just the remote was like $120, something like that. That's where you're looking at price-wise, and you do need an Nvidia card, but I feel like people who are going to spend the $200 that I spent on this are probably the people who are getting the Nvidia graphics cards. A lot of people get AMD because it's a little less consistent, but about as good for a lot cheaper, which is essentially what the Steam Link is to this product. So I figure AMD users would probably prefer the Steam Link anyway, just based off of the way that ends up playing out. But we'll jump into a closer look at the actual things that come out of the box, and I'll kind of review everything that comes with it. Okay, so we're missing a couple of the components here because I didn't want to unhook them up, I'll be honest. They're in the living room and I'm lazy. But what we got here is the controller, the remote, and the shield itself. I'll get some close-up shots of these so you guys can see what I'm talking about as I'm talking about it. But So it's really interesting. Actually, I like the controller a lot. I like the way it's very geometric. And one thing I do find odd about is the analog sticks in both places. It's reminiscent of the Sony controllers, but this has a very Xbox layout and feel to it at the same time. So it's like this weird hybrid. So I'm still kind of adjusting to that. A lot of times I end up trying to reach up here for the stick just out of the AXYB fact of it. It's got a microphone up on the top, which you can use to speak commands as far as like navigating the menus and stuff. It's got a micro USB port for charging. And then it's got these 3 buttons down here. You got your Nvidia menu, your pause menu, and your select button, essentially. Yeah, it's a pretty handy controller. It's got a space for a headset. Looks like just a standard aux port, 3.5. Yeah, it's got the charging port, and it comes with the charging cable. It's decent length, but not super long. This is the remote that it comes with in all versions of the product, and I really do enjoy this remote. It too has a microphone, which is similar to the Amazon products, so that's cool. You got the microphone button to activate that. But it's got some menu buttons, and then my favorite part about both of these is the volume. Volume is controlled right here in this little touchpad. You go up for up and down for down, and this is the Nvidia Shield's volume. So you can turn your TV like up pretty loud, and then just use this to like control it, which for people like me who have long not had a remote for their TV and just don't want to go buy one, this is a great solution. So that's been awesome. And then this one's is right here, down here in this bottom section. It's really sleek. I really like that. I thought that was really nice touch. Here's the product itself. It's got Ethernet port. I'm not sure what the speed is on that. And then it's got the power port and HDMI port and 2 USB 3.0 slots. So that's solid. I use one of them for a wireless mouse keyboard combo, so I can type things in and navigate things a little easier. And then the other I use for usually this charging cord. I do have an Xbox 360 dongle, but I tend to just use this. I use my 360 controller for my PC. I use this for out in the living room, and that's been working out just fine. So the controller is just good enough. And then as far as my experience with the product so far, it's been pretty solid. I mainly got it to play South Park Stick of Truth because I've been wanting to play that again. And I never actually finished it. I got very close, but I never actually finished it. So I wanted to play it again, but I wanted to play it out in the living room because I just did. So I've been looking at this for a little bit, and I decided to go get it. So I was playing that. It ran fine. It ran great. Being streamed from my tower, there was minimal latency. I don't even have that fast of internet, which isn't really a dependency on that game, so I guess that's not really relevant there. But it ran great. It looked great. There was like very minimal latency. I didn't really notice much as I was actually like doing things and things happening, so that was very good. I do use Ethernet over power. I have an adapter for that. So I use a little Netgear thing. It's just got, you know, it just uses your power infrastructure, your power wiring to send the data. They're like fairly cheap. You can buy them at Best Buy as well, or on Amazon probably for even cheaper. I have to say it was pretty solid experience. And then at one point I tried to play Monster Hunter World. My friend's been really into that recently, so I downloaded Monster Hunter World without realizing I downloaded it onto the Nvidia Shield itself. So I actually got to see how it ran that. It did not run that game very well, but to be fair, I turned up the settings quite a bit because I was under the impression it downloaded it to my PC for a little while. It became very obvious when the screen started going very pixely, very like awful in certain situations, in movement seemed to trigger it, that there was an issue, and that's when I looked at it and I realized I installed this fairly amazing looking game onto this oh so limited device and then ramped its settings up pretty far because I have a decent build, so I was trying to really get it up there to see what it looked like. So that was my bad. I'm sorry. I just noticed that Suki's paws are sticking out underneath the door. She's reaching into the room, like clawing at it. Just really distracting. Anyway, so that game ran great. Monster Hunter World ran a lot better when I started streaming from my PC. The only problem I saw with that was I was sitting too far away from my TV to read the small text. That game has pretty small text, so I ended up just playing in here. for the sake of getting that. But that was all right. I played a little bit of Rocket League. And, I mean, something that's true for all of these streaming systems, especially when you're streaming like from your PC to your thing and there's internet connection involved. I only have 25 megs down because that's all I could get here, which is pretty ridiculous, but that's all I could get where I live. So that's the fastest internet I have. Optimistically, it's 35, depends on time of day and stuff like that. But I was playing Rocket League, and I played a little bit of Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2. Xenoverse 2 seemed to run good enough, like about as good as the Steam Link, if not a little better, like minimal latency there. Rocket League, though, since it's an online game, I guess Xenoverse 2 I wasn't playing online, so that's a good part of it. But it is a fast-paced fighting game, so it ran well for a fast-paced fighting game. Rocket League, because of its internet connection dependency and its fast-paced nature, it did get a little weird. I also found the sensitivity on the controller initially, this must have just been the Rocket League game settings itself, but it was always fine on my 360 controller and the PC. And it even did all right on the Steam Link on the Xbox controller. When I was playing with this, I had to turn the steering sensitivity way up, and I still feel like it's not responsive enough in that it turns when I want it to turn, but it's not turning as sharp as I would expect. And since I've played Rocket League, sorry, the cat got me again, but since I've played Rocket League for so long, I definitely feel like my instincts are correct in that it feels off. There's a reason I gotta feel that way, I'm sure. With as much as I've played it. So I'm still trying to figure that out. That's like the overall for the Nvidia Shield in terms of my experiences with it, its specs, its hardware. Here's a little bit of gameplay on it on my TV so you can kind of see how it's streaming. I'm not going to capture card this. I'm just going to film it as the camera. That way you can kind of see it for what it is. Also, I don't have a capture card and I don't really feel like rigging all that up for this. So, yep, subpar gameplay. Coming up. Yep.
like the